hope everyone's having a great summer and enjoying a little bit of the Eagles' downtime because training camp will be here before you know it.
Yeah, we're thinking the third week of July, somewhere around the 22nd, 23rd.
Yeah, no, they're reporting on the 22nd.
Reporting the 22nd, on the field 23rd.
Yeah, it's exciting. Early start this year.
So, Dave, you'll get down to what, the 16th with the tent? Probably
just live in that tent for a while.
Just make sure you're the first one there.
I won't quite do that, but I probably will be the first one there on the first day of practice.
When Dave's like not half an hour early, we get worried about it.
It is funny. Sometimes I'll hit traffic or there'll be an accident or something happens, and I'll get a text like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm still here." Before plenty of time. I'm not late, but I appreciate that.
Okay. We're always concerned.
This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. We're presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We have another mailbag episode for you in the slow time of the summer. So we appreciate all the questions that have been filling into the mailbag over the last few weeks. We're going to empty it out a little bit today. As always, it's eagle-eye at nbcuni.com. QR code on the screen. We'll leave it up there if you're watching on YouTube for a little while. First one here from Michael. Hey, Dave and Rube, not a question, just a big thank you for all the work you put into the podcast. I've tried a bunch of different Eagles pods, and you two are hands down the best. You treat your listeners with respect, never talk down to them, unlike some others I won't name, and I've become a much more informed fan because of it. Fly, Eagles, fly. Can't wait for the new season.
Oh, shut up.
You like us, you idiot. No, thank you, Michael. That's very kind.
Who do you think he's talking about?
I don't want to play that game.
No.
Yeah, definitely not playing that game. But we do appreciate it. And if you like what we're doing and you like all the podcasts, please, I'll get this in early. Rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Leave those 5-star reviews. It helps. I don't know how it helps. I'm not smart enough to understand all that, but I hear it helps. So
it helps.
It does. All right. Let's get to the questions today. This one from Ross. The observation has been made multiple times that Ben VanSumeren's fullback duties are more akin to tight end than running back, i.e. something like an old school H-back, proof of that being that he's in the tight end room and not the running back room. So the question is, what are the chances they roll with just 2 tight ends on the 53 plus BVS acting as a third tight end? In run-heavy 3 tight end sets, they usually throw out an offensive lineman there as the third tight end anyway, and they can still do that when needed, but otherwise BVS is just the third tight end / fullback.
Yeah, I don't want to get carried away with the Ben VanSumeren thing. He's a good blocker, and I'm like, if you do keep a third tight end, I mean, that guy's got to be able to catch some passes and be a block. I just don't see him being that guy. I think if he makes the team, he's going to be as a special teamer, an emergency linebacker, and a blocker in certain situations. I don't think he's going to play a whole lot. Your third tight end wouldn't either. I guess it's possible. I just don't. I think he's like a guy without a position name. I think he's just a guy who can do a lot of things fairly well. Do you think he's a lock to make the team?
No, not a lock. He's got to make the team. He's got to prove he's healthy after that knee injury last year, first off, and then how does he fit in on offense? Because we know his fit on special teams. He's going to be a really good special teamer if he's on the team, but there are younger players too. Like you have a Smile Mondin now who's going to be a special teams demon. So it's not like you might not necessarily need BVS on teams as much as you used to.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, like they kept 2 tight ends coming out of camp last year.
Yes, they did.
So it's not like Ben VanSumeren is the only reason they would do this. You can kind of get by with having tight ends on the practice squad, calling them up here and there. Eventually, when someone gets hurt at a different position, you can sign one of those guys to the active roster. I do think, even though it's not all the time, I think they prefer to have 3 tight ends on game day, because if you have an injury, then your 12 personnel package is out.
Yeah.
And I don't think you want to eliminate personnel packages with an injury.
Yeah, I think
But they have done it. They've gone into games with 2 tight ends.
I think they had 3 most of the time. I feel like I have to look that up between call-ups and whatnot. But yeah, I don't want to get too carried away with it. It's a fun story. He's a good guy and you root for him, but I don't think there's any lock that he'll be a part of this.
Is it a lock that they will have a fullback, though?
I don't know if it's a lock. I don't know.
I think they won't want it, and that's the evidence of that is Kari Blasingame getting signed after VanSumeren went down.
Yeah, but also I wonder how much, like, if the offense is significantly different as far as run-pass ratio, and they're not running the ball as much, do you want to use a roster spot on that, or, you know, I mean, if you have a call up, that's limited how many times you can do that. I don't think it's a lock. And also, there's a new offensive coordinator, and I get that it's Nick's team, it's his roster, it's his baby. But, you know, Kevin Petullo might be like, I don't want a fullback. This is 2025 here, so there's no lock for me that position will be here.
Yeah, it's probably not a lock, but I'm leaning toward they want it.
It's fun to have.
I love a fullback, man. It's fun.
We'll see.
Okay, next question is from Sam. Hello, Dave and Roob. Huge fan of the pod. Rarely, if ever, miss a pod. And now here's a part of the email where I will insert generic Eagle Eye fan praise and obscure indie folk band references from 2008 to catch Roob's attention. Let's get down to business. I had a great / easy idea to eliminate the not aesthetically pleasing argument against the tush push. We have to encourage the broadcasters to put a sky cam view whenever the Eagles line up in the tush push formation. I think this will look really cool to watch 22 dudes push each other from an overhead view and make the play more entertaining for the audience at home, and hopefully it will quiet the haters.
Well, it would be the director, not the broadcasters, who would determine what shot. Yeah, I don't remember if I've seen that shot, though. That would be.
I think we have, haven't we?
Overhead. I don't know. I remember.
And also, the aesthetically pleasing argument is stupid.
Yeah, it's idiotic.
Yeah, I appreciate that Nick didn't take a victory lap.
Were you a little surprised at that?
No, it's also kind of a touchy subject. I think you don't want to say anything to make people angrier.
Yeah, I mean, you're hanging on a thread as it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Part of the question was a good question. I forget who asked it, but it was also about the Colts and Cardinals not siding with them.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I think it was Bo Wolf.
It was Bo. Okay. Not obviously the coaches making the decisions, but a lot of owners will listen to their coaches when it comes to football matters.
Yeah,
so
he just ignored that part of it.
Yeah. Which you have to ignore it.
You have to.
What are you going to say? But yeah, that was something we all took note of when all the votes came out.
Yeah, we kind of assumed those would be two votes on the Eagles side, and they weren't.
And I wonder if Nick thought that too.
Yeah, could be.
He talked about it, in the first owners meetings in late March. I think it was to Mike Garafolo, said like, "Oh, we know we better have Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon on our side."
Did he say that?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Help them get head coaching jobs, he said.
I mean, Shane more than Gannon, obviously.
Overall team success.
Yeah. The Saints is the one where, Kellen, how many times did he dial that up? If the Saints didn't, that would have been really hypocritical.
And they were with him, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Brett with the next question. First time, long time. Reports out of the May owners meetings suggest that the salary cap was discussed, and many outlets have interpreted this as the NFL's leadership wanting to curb the use of void years in contracts, with the Eagles again cited as a prime offender. Honestly, I've always been kind of surprised the NFL hasn't tried to curb them sooner, since it undermines one of the principal benefits of a salary cap beyond controlling salaries: parity. Not many owners are willing or able to lay out as much money up front as Lurie has been. I think there's no question this has played a role easily overlooked in the Eagles' long-term success, but maybe a lot of other teams value the flexibility even if they don't exploit them as aggressively. Have you heard any rumblings about targeting void years during the next CBA? If so, can you see Jeff Lurie fighting as hard to keep them as he did with the tush push? Will he hear GMs complain that void years are not Will we hear that GMs complaining void years are not aesthetically pleasing? Curious to hear any of your thoughts or insights you guys can offer.
Well, the CBA goes up until 2031. So I don't think Jeff Lurie will be owning the team. Maybe he will by the time there's a new CBA. His son might be.
I don't know. That's not that far away.
6 years. I think the current CBA goes through 30, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's a fair question, though, because it is a loophole that, gosh, I believe Joe Banner first started using. The guy that Howie really learned a lot of his tricks from and kind of perfected them. But yeah, it does circumvent a rule that's in there for a reason. And I'm surprised they haven't moved to close that loophole.
The thing is, other teams use it.
Other teams do use it. And
it's becoming a little more prevalent. Look, there are going to be teams who don't want it because it does take an owner who's willing to dish out cash. And basically kind of a really rudimentary way to understand this, if you don't, is that there are basically two ways to pay players. One is base salary. The other is bonus money, whether it's a signing bonus or an option bonus. And if you pay those bonuses, they become prorated over the length of a contract. And one of the tricks the Eagles and other teams have started to use is these void years, basically like dummy years on the end of a contract that aren't real. They don't expect the player to play on that contract in that year. They can't actually play on those years, but it's a tool to spread out that cap space prorated just for cap purposes, not actual giving out money. So
and what it does is it takes advantage of the fact that the cap goes up every year, because you're basically taking a cap hit from now and putting it in a year where the cap's going to be bigger, and that hit will have a smaller percentage of your total cap.
Yeah. And look, it is a kick the can method, but you're kicking the can into a future that keeps getting brighter and brighter for the NFL.
Yeah. The tush push, it was all directed toward one team. Now the Eagles kind of were the first to do this, but other teams do it now. So I'd be surprised if anything like that does change. Mm-hmm. Now the CBA is different than a rule change, as far as adding something, changing something. It's just, it doesn't take a vote of the owners. It takes basically management council and the PA to agree on it. And, and then it gets voted on.
Yeah. And the PA, there's nothing wrong with players getting paid up front.
Right.
They like that. Get a little change in your pocket.
Yeah.
But you could still eliminate the void years, because is it within the spirit of the rules? No, it isn't. But it's a loophole a lot of teams use, and this is Over the Cap has a great breakdown of void years, the history of them. In 2013, 8 teams used void years. It peaked in 2021. There were 30. In 2025, 26 teams.
And look, if they do get rid of void years or limit them, more than they're limited now, Howie's still going to find ways to get contracts done to stay under the cap.
Yeah, but it is a big tool. They use Spotrac has number of players with void years on their current contracts. The Saints are the only team with more than the Eagles. They have 21. The Eagles have 20.
You've always been an over the cap guy. You've never been a Spotrac. I've never heard you mention Spotrac. I'm a Spotrac guy.
You're on the wrong side of history, buddy.
I like Spotrac. Anyway.
But this is good information. Sometimes good information. I'll give them.
They both
credit.
have some really cool stuff on them.
Yeah. At the bottom of that list, there are the Steelers, Giants, Patriots, Raiders, Bears, Chargers. 0 players.
Interesting.
The Bengals, I know they're a team that is kind of always on the opposite of the Eagles because they don't have cash. Just 2 players.
Interesting.
It's a big advantage. And in the Over the Cap article, Jason Fitzgerald brings up the June 1st designations as a potential loophole to get closed. The Eagles use that really well too.
Yeah, they do.
And very purposefully. even the retirements, because that's another thing with these void years. Like they kind of work in conjunction with one another, because you're pushing it out to these void years that, if a player retires, like Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, if they retire before June 1st, it all accelerates to that current year. If you say, hey, let's wait to file that paperwork until June 2nd, like all those players, it pushes it into next year.
Well, they had James Bradbury. I mean, they just released him last week officially because,
well, no, they released him with a post-June 1st designation.
But he was showing up on all their salary stuff, is what I should say. Yeah.
I mean, Slay too.
Yeah.
But those were their two. You get 2 designations per year,
right?
Post June 1st. But yeah, no, it's an interesting thing. And the Eagles, at the other part of that question, will Jeff Lurie fight to keep it? Hell yeah. Yeah, it's been a big boost for them. All right. Next one is from Steven. Hey, Dave and Roob. I asked an incredibly long question last time that went unanswered, and rightfully so. I'll keep it short and revive it with Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff was a defensive end. What exactly is the difference between a defensive end and an outside linebacker? Nolan Smith is listed as an outside linebacker, but I was under the impression him and Jalix Hunt were both defensive ends like Huff. Would you be able to provide clarity on this? Also, was Campbell known for rushing the passer in college? Why would Vic place him in the inside linebacker room and not the outside linebacker room? So really 2 questions there. Let's start with the labels of players.
I think anyone who's over 250 is a defensive end. If you're under 250, you're an edge. I mean, there's really no – I think if you play all downs, you're a defensive end. I look at edge as being a guy that's like rushing the passer's the biggest – like by far the biggest part of his job. If you're an every down – guy that you're going to stop the run and make a lot of tackles and be out there on a lot of first downs, you're more like a defensive end. They're generally, for me, like guys who are 265 as opposed to 245. But there's no rules. And StatHead, it's a mess because you can't search for defensive end, linebacker, outside linebacker, inside. It's all combined. It's kind of a mess. But there's no real hard and fast rule. But I think for me, it's how you look at what that guy's responsibilities are.
Yeah, when we say edge rusher, it's a little dismissive at times because those guys got to set an edge too. They have to play the run. Like Nolan Smith is, but like he kind of bucks your trend a little bit because he's tiny, but he's a really good run defender.
He is, but I don't think you hear anyone call him a defensive end because of his size.
So I do appreciate the Eagles last year brought back the designation OLB, outside linebacker, because before that, they were listing their outside linebackers as linebackers, which is a nightmare. Like there should be ILBs and OLBs.
Right.
If you're going to do it that way, you can still have defensive ends if you want, but a lot of these terms get used interchangeably, whether it's outside linebacker, whether it's defensive end, edge rusher. The Eagles like the term overhang player, especially in these types of defenses. There aren't steadfast rules.
Nobody ever called Reggie White an edge. He was 295, played the run, got 20 sacks a year. He was defensive end.
Yeah. And also, like, it gets into 3-4, 4-3.
Yeah.
But
I think that's how it started.
Yeah, but like now all these defenses are a hodgepodge anyway. So
Right.
it's the terms are probably outdated and they're trying to keep up with the old structure of what defense was. And that's not really the world we live in anymore.
Yeah.
The other part, Campbell was known for rushing and passer. We've talked about Campbell. Not only did Vic give his explanation that there's more to learn at inside linebacker, but also like that's what he primarily played at Alabama. I know they recruited him as a pass rusher, an edge rusher, a defensive end, an outside linebacker, an overhang player, all those, but he was a good inside linebacker. And I think first and foremost, that's how the Eagles view him, at least the coaching staff.
It looks that way. Sure.
Okay. I thought you had more there.
No, I mean, I think you touched on the first thing you said about there's just a lot more to learn at an inside linebacker spot than a pass rushing spot. So it just makes sense to line him up there. I don't think it means he's only going to do that, but I think he's primarily going to do that once he starts playing.
And I also think he's more pro ready at inside backer than he is at edge rusher. Like, you watched him at Alabama when he did get a chance to rush. He was winning with like just athleticism and quickness. He needs a lot of refinement in that area. And it's going to take time to get there if he ever does.
Yeah.
All right, Joe.
I subscribe to the theory that Vic is always right. It's just
right a lot.
Just good way to look at it.
I've got a fun off-season question for you.
We'll decide if it's fun.
What player have you been the most wrong about? Maybe someone you thought was going to have a breakout season who never developed, or a veteran you thought was washed up but had a big season.
I think I've told the story about Mike Bellamy. The Eagles drafted 3 wide receivers in 1990. Fred Barnett, Calvin Williams, and Mike Bellamy. Mike Bellamy was the first one. He was a second rounder. I think Freddie was third. Calvin, I think, was fifth. I don't believe Mike Bellamy ever caught a pass in the NFL. He was at Illinois. He's really polished, NFL ready, really smooth guy, great hands, but it just never happened for him. And he spent the first year here, played some special teams, but we don't have snap counts from back then. I don't think he ever even got on the field on offense. Ended up in Canada, played in Canada for a couple of years. Obviously, Fred Barnett made a couple. I guess he made 1 Pro Bowl, had 2,000-yard seasons. Calvin Williams was a decent 2 for a few years, but Mike Bellamy is a guy I was most wrong about. And then the flip side of that was Keith Jackson 2 years earlier, who had caught, I think, 13 passes his senior year at Oklahoma. I thought Buddy was crazy. Drafted him in the first round and caught 88 balls his rookie year, which was the record for a rookie tight end until I believe last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Dave's never wrong, so I'm sure you won't have it.
Yeah, let's move on to it. No, there have been certainly ones I've gotten wrong. I don't know if I was wrong on Carson or it just didn't work out, but like I thought he was going to be the starter here for 10,
but
15
that's
years.
different. I mean,
okay.
He was really, really good.
Yeah.
He's just one of the weirdest careers. So is Nick. Both of them had weird careers, but Carson's currently not on a roster. You think he'll play this year? You think is he done?
It's possible. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of wild, right? I think it's possible. We've seen the last of him.
He's a 32-year-old guy who hasn't been good in several years. I think he's done.
It's crazy.
Yeah. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's, I guess he was a backup last year, but yeah, doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who wants to be 35 and bouncing around, Geno Smith-esque. He's made a ton of money.
I'm trying to think of other ones. I was a big Kayvon Wallace fan, and it was 4th round pick, so it wasn't like a super high pick. I thought he had a chance to eventually be a starter.
You like how Dave covers his like, well, he was a 4th round pick. So, but and Davion as well. I liked him when he played.
Yeah, I think Davion was a good lesson. If you're going to draft a player who needs snaps, you have to have a way to get him the snaps.
Yeah.
Like I agree with you. Like from a talent, if he would have not gotten hurt, what was that, 2020?
I think so.
And if he would have just gotten that whole year to play, like maybe he would have had an NFL career.
He was playing well. Yeah.
So I think it's a good lesson. Like certain positions that are rotational, if you need snaps, you can find ways to get them. But if it's a linebacker or a safety or, some one of those positions where like they need snaps, is the only way they're going to get better. You can't, you're not going to find them, especially not if you want to be a good team.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a team that stinks and you have time to develop and grow, you can play them there, but you're not going to get it if you're trying to compete.
What about the flip side, which would be a guy that you didn't think was going to be any good, but turned out well?
Oh,
yeah, one of those.
Not that I didn't think he was going to be good, but like Jalen Hurts is becoming a franchise quarterback was not something I thought was going to happen. And it's obviously tied to Carson.
Right.
People always bring up our post-draft podcast when they drafted Jalen, how confused we were.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think we were alone in that.
Why wouldn't you be?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still confused.
When they drafted Landon, I thought there was a ton of risk.
Yeah.
Based on the injury history. And I understood the reward was big with him. I was very concerned about the risk there.
Sure.
I was trying to think like recent years, what's been like draft takes.
Yeah.
I thought Derek Barnett was going to be better.
Yeah.
I thought he was at least going to be, a solid starting defensive end in this league. And he wasn't. He was like not a bust, but he wasn't league average starter.
Yeah. I guess he wasn't a bust. He's going to his, 9th year or something.
Yeah, he's not a bust.
He's got 29 sacks in 9 seasons. 8 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, busts don't play out the rookie deals and then some.
29 sacks, excuse me, as a 14th pick. He had 5 last year. He had 2 fumble return touchdowns last year.
He did. He's a bigger boy these days. Have you seen any clips of him from Houston?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a defensive end.
Yeah, he's big these days. He'll turn 29 in June. Sometimes you see these guys like, how is that? When did that happen?
Yeah, we could play that game, bust or not a bust. I don't think he is.
No, I definitely don't think he is. Busts don't make it out of their rookie contracts.
I think they could in some cases.
Okay.
But like you get a couple 1-year deals and bounce around. But he's played 95 games in his career.
He's pieced together a nice NFL career.
Yeah, he had a fumble recovery in the Super Bowl, I seem to remember.
I do remember that, yeah.
Derek Barnett, interesting guy. Is he still with the Texans?
I believe so. All right, let's take a little break and answer more questions on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and NissanUSA.com today.
We're back on the Eagle Eye podcast. You look surprised. You right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Back on the Eagle Eye podcast, Roob and Frank and Dave Zangaro were presented, as always, by Nissan. Next question here is from Pete. Hey, Dave and Roob, here's a stupid question for you.
Oh, my favorite.
Maybe you can use it in the slow period. Howie has 13 picks in the 2026 draft. If somehow Howie could trade all of his picks in rounds 1 through 7 and acquire all of the picks in round 5, do you think he would do it? Essentially, would he rather have 32 tiny nibbles all round 5 or his current allotment of big bites rounds 1 and 2 and nibbles? Thanks as always. Love the pod.
No.
Yeah, round 5 is too late.
Yeah.
I saw this question a few days ago. Me and Mike Mulhern started looking at previous round 5s. Not enough hits to trade away an entire draft class. And also, like, this isn't realistic, so I don't even want to get into roster space because that's then we're
that's
taking
not what the questions about.
Yeah, let's not take the fun out of this.
So you're saying if you draft the 32 guys and then take like the 2 or 3 best out of that,
or you get a chance to develop them.
Is that better than what you're going to get by taking the one guy in the first, the one guy in the second, one guy in the third? I think that the earliest round I would do that would be the 3rd.
So I think the 3rd I would absolutely do it.
Yeah. I wouldn't do the 4th though.
The 4th is hit or miss. Like the 4th is where like you start to go, well, it could work, it might not work.
Yeah.
It's 3rd definitely, I would say.
Yeah, I would do the 3rd.
Yeah. It's fun. If you have some time, go look back at like the fourth round of a draft and just see if you'd take the best players, like the 7 best players from that round versus what you would get if you were just drafting
every
round.
Yeah. That's not stupid. I mean, if that's a stupid question, we just spent 5 minutes on it. So what does it say about us? I like that question. That's good.
Alan. Hello, Ruben Dave.
Hey, Alan.
I spent some time recently watching an old Eagles Cowboys game from 2011. Don't ask me why, but I noticed one play in particular that I found interesting. The Eagles ran a screen pass to LaShawn McCoy with a fullback on the field. The fullback was able to get downfield and block his assignment sooner because he's an eligible receiver. I've seen so many illegal lineman downfield penalties recently and wonder if the Eagles can use Ben VanSumeren in this way to get downfield sooner on screen passes and make them more effective. Would love to know what you think.
That fullback was probably Owen Schmidt, right? 2011. It was Owen Schmidt.
Yeah, probably, I guess.
Yeah, again, we don't know if he's going to make the team. In general, I wish they would throw more screens. They've been kind of screen deficient for years.
And it's always perplexed me, and I wonder if it's a Statland thing or what, because you have running backs who are good after the catch. You have an offensive line that's super athletic. I don't know. Seems like a pretty good recipe to be good in the screen game.
Yeah, and they've had good I don't understand why they didn't do it more with Miles. With DeAndre Swift was a good receiver. They did it with Shady. Westbrook obviously was huge in the screen game. I think about that screen they ran in the playoff game in Minneapolis when they were up like 3 and they were like about to give the game away, and he goes like 68 yards with a screen. Donovan's all happy because he gets a 68-yard touchdown pass in his stats. It can be such a weapon, and yeah, I feel like they have the pieces to do it. I'd like to see more of it. It
is a play where everything has to be perfect. The timing really matters.
Sure.
And if the timing's off a little bit, the play is sunk and it's a negative play. So I understand the reasons you might not run it. And also like the part of the question about the illegal man downfield penalties, those mostly happen on RPOs because, you don't know what's coming. So you're run blocking and then it's a pass and all of a sudden, Landon Dickerson's 10 yards downfield and you get called for it.
Yeah.
And especially when a team like the Eagles runs the RPOs, the coach before every game walking up to that ref saying, hey, keep an eye on their linemen leaking downfield.
Yeah. And also there's been more of an emphasis on it from the league with the officials. I think the last few years, I think they've been open about that. Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of a lead blocker. It doesn't have to be a fullback.
Yeah.
It could be someone down the field making a play, like Johnny Wilson, right? Like that was kind of his role as a rookie. I mean, Zach Pascal 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was.
Could be a guard. I mean, their left guard and their center are so athletic.
Well, yeah, but then yeah.
But I mean, if you're just talking about a skill guy, yeah.
Well, the idea here is you don't want to get the man downfield penalty.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Wilson certainly could do it.
All right. Next one is from Michael. Hi, Dave and Rube. When you discussed Dallas Goedert's next contract, you mentioned that if he has a great season, he might price himself out of Philly. But I took a look at the top 5 tight end deals. They range from $14 million to $19 million per year. Given that Goedert will be 31 in 2026, is it really realistic to think he'd command a number that the Eagles couldn't work with? This is a team that ate $17 million on a cap hit for Bryce Huff, who wasn't even active in the Super Bowl and still brought home a Lombardi. Are we really saying that there wouldn't be room for a veteran leader and top-tier tight end like Dallas? The cap's going up, and it's hard to imagine Goedert resetting the tight end market at that age. So if he balls out, are we sure the team can't find a number that makes sense?
That's a fair question. I'm not sure of anything. I'm not sure, what he's going to look for if he has that kind of year and what they'd be willing to pay. I mean, we've talked about the other guys. They've got some contracts coming up, and they don't have unlimited cap space. And
at a certain point, too, like it's such a top-heavy offensively paid roster. Like you're going to have to flip and pay a lot of these defensive guys.
Yeah, that's certainly going to happen. And also those tight end numbers you cited are just going to go up as well. So it's kind of hard to speculate because we don't know what kind of season he's going to have.
And Kittle just got paid. Kittle's obviously a better player, but he just got paid at an advanced age.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's encouraging that they got it done this time around, and maybe they can make it happen again. I mean, he brings so much to the table. They obviously like him. So if it's at all possible, then yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I don't think they're going to pay him $15 million next year.
And if he stays healthy this year, does that really change your thought? Like, does that outweigh what we've seen in his entire career? You know what I'm saying? Like, even if he proves it in 1 year, what does it really prove?
Does that mean he's no longer injury prone because he had 1 year? I think it would help.
Sure.
Show he can do it if he plays 15 games, 16 games. You'd like to see that. I think that would be part of the evaluation. That would be a little positive. Yeah.
Okay, next one from Nolan. What's up, gents? Given the love the coaching staff has for Johnny Wilson and the belief in his ability, particularly blocking and potential for a red zone threat, what do y'all think about the idea of moving Johnny Wilson to tight end? He could bulk up some and refine his play, but he could be an option after Dallas moves on. Excited to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I just don't think he's a tight end. I mean, this has come up before, I think. He's a good blocker.
I mean, from the moment they drafted him, it came up just because of his size.
His size and his blocking ability. But whether he can be actually a tight end who actually gets snaps at that position, I just don't see it.
I think it would be if he really flames out as a receiver. And he and whatever team he's on, whether it's the Eagles or somewhere else, trying to figure out a way to keep him
Matthews type thing. The thing about there's also, I mean, he's a really good blocker in space, but you're talking about like a tight end that needs to block on the line of scrimmage.
It's very different.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, I don't think he'd ever be like a great inline blocker necessarily, but there are tight ends who aren't as well.
That's true, but they're really good receivers. I'm not sure he is.
Well, the idea there would be like maybe he's not a good receiver as a wide receiver, but as a tight end.
Yeah, but tight ends that can't block, they better catch 70 balls these days. And he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that.
He's going to put that on his bulletin board.
He's not going to do that.
When we're at Canton in 2040 and Johnny Wilson's up there and he's going to say, well, you know, Reuben Frank once said, I'm not going to catch 70 balls in a season. I did it 10 times.
I'll tell you what. It's more likely that he'll catch 70 balls 10 times than that I'll be at the Hall of Fame in 2040.
Fair enough. Next question is from Herb. Hey, team, let's put on our Howie contract extension thinking caps. This is reads like a teacher. By the end of the season, Howie will likely want to extend Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and Moro Ojomo, and maybe even Keely Ringo and Tyler Steen from the 2023 draft class. That would cost a pretty penny. Considering this, I don't see how Jordan Davis can get an extension beyond the fifth-year option next year, even if he plays like a superstar. What are your thoughts?
Well, Tyler Steen's got to win a job before he's going to make the team be a starter before he gets an extension, which I'm not sure. I'll make the team, I guess, but look, and you're talking about Keely, who's never been a starter, and I'm bullish on Keely, but you're making some assumptions there as well, and I think it'll all sort itself out. Eagles could lose some good players. It's certainly possible.
Well, let's just boil it down to defensive tackle then. Can they afford, if Jordan Davis has a really good season and Jalen Carter has a really good season, can they afford to pay both of them?
Probably not.
Okay. That might be all we need to talk about.
Probably not.
Yeah. Especially if Moro enters in the mix, has a nice season, might have a better season than Jordan Davis, who knows? But I think you're limited into how much you can spend at that position. Although they have paid two defensive tackles before. You think about Fletcher and Javon Hargrave.
Right.
Or certainly both were on big deals at that position.
What do you make of Jordan Davis? We haven't really talked about him a whole lot.
I feel like we have. No?
Have we?
What do I think about him?
Maybe it was when I wasn't here.
Yeah, I think that the Eagles last year didn't use a lot of 5-man fronts, so there were fewer snaps for him as a pure nose tackle. And when they get in the pure pass last year, I understand why he wasn't on the field, because you had Milton and you had Jalen Carter. Like, those guys were going to be out there. If he can't get out there on some of those situations this year, I think that's troubling.
Fair.
I think he needs to play more percentage-wise than he did last year.
Oh, yeah. And with Milton out here, we'll see how that goes. I thought he finished strong. I thought that was encouraging. Might have been a little fluky. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he did. But, I know the Eagles are really valuing that, or at least they're saying they're really valuing that. I'd like to see it over a longer period of time. And I don't know if – I think they've probably talked about that like it was better than it was.
I thought he was pretty good. I mean, I thought he was pretty good down the stretch and in the postseason. But it's funny because, he's drafted so well that I think Jordan Davis is a perfectly fine, adequate, solid NFL player, and there just might not be room for him.
And it's also possible he takes more time to develop. We have seen that at defensive tackle before. Not everyone comes in the league and tears it up. It can take a little bit of time, but
only 25.
This is probably the year we need to at least see more payoff as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't see it this year, how many years can you wait on it?
Yeah, you kind of want to see like 5 sacks. Mm-hmm. That would make me.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, he's never really been asked to do it.
Yeah,
so it's going to take time, and it's not even just physically doing it. It's like flipping your mindset to be a pass rusher. That can take some time.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think I'm holding out hope that he can turn into an adequate rusher, but got to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, we've talked, I think the thing we have talked about a lot with Jordan Davis is his weight and his size and his conditioning. I think you're walking a fine line there, because what made him so special when you drafted him was that he was massive, but also really athletic at that size. So it's great to talk about him losing weight, but I think you also worry about losing what made him a special prospect at some point.
I think you find that middle ground.
Threading the needle a little bit.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next one is from Tom. Hi, Dave and Roob. As always, thank you for your pods, articles, and analysis on TV. A few questions here. One, since it appears Sidney Brown is not a Vic Fangio favorite, is it possible they tried to trade him? Is there a tight end out there that he could be pride-free for? I don't think tight end would be the spot.
Yeah.
I also don't think they're going to trade Sidney Brown.
Yeah, I don't think Vic's down on Sidney Brown. I just think he's not his guy. I think there's a spot for Sidney Brown on this team, even if it's just as a backup and as a special teamer.
Totally agree. Yeah. And I don't know if the juice would be worth a squeeze on a trade. I don't think you're getting much for him. So I think he's more valuable to you on the roster, even if he's not the starter, like you mentioned, as depth, as a special teamer.
What caliber tight end are you going to get for Sidney Brown that you don't already have? Yeah. So it is rare to see player for player trades. Just don't see many of those.
Yeah. It's typically like when this player might have something that's not going to be here, and you have like similar situation on another team.
Yeah.
I always think of Ryan Bates for Eli Harold.
What is wrong with you?
Remember that one?
No.
Buffalo. The Eagles got veteran edge rusher Eli Harold, who didn't make the team. Ryan Bates ended up having a really nice career.
Eli Harold. How was Eli Harold? Where did he go to school?
I don't remember that.
He went to Virginia.
But he was a veteran. And Ryan Bates had a nice career. Played.
Eli Harold get drafted by the 49ers? Oh, yeah, he did, actually.
Ryan Bates, 76 games in his career, 21 starts.
Wow.
Ended up playing in Buffalo for 5 seasons after that. Eli Harold didn't make the team in Philly.
Never played here.
Howie doesn't win every trade.
So that was 2019.
You don't remember that trade?
I don't. I do remember the Eagles had drafted John Harris in the first round in 98, I guess it was. And the Packers.
I remember 2018, but 98.
The Packers had drafted a guy named John. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It was like Michel, Michels. He had been a first round. They were both complete first round busts. And they got traded for each other, and neither one ever played for the other team. And it was just one of those, like, at least we didn't cut him. We traded him. And then they both got
a lot of times it's like you look at the roster, like, he's not going to make our team. Let's give him a chance to make a different roster. Maybe we get a guy who can try to make our roster.
See if John Harris ever played for the Packers. I'm guessing he did not. John Harris. There was a lot of John Harrises. John Harris, the Eagles' John Harris he grew up right under JFK Airport.
Under it?
Like below the
I know
flight, whatever. The glide scope. Is that what they call it when they're landing? The glide scope. He lived right under the glide scope. We have any pilots out there? Kellenberg, New York, right under the JFK
We do.
Airport.
We have a pilot listener.
We do?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the phrase for, it's like the corridor where the plane is landing is the glide scope. It's like the altitude and the spacing with the runway. And
I feel like you're just saying aviation words.
Glide scope. John Harris never played for the Packers. John Michel never played for the Eagles. John Harris did not have a good career, Dave. 25th pick overall. It was 97. My bad. Had 2 sacks. Played 2 years. Played 24 games. Was out of the league.
We have one more question from Tom. He also asked about Johnny Wilson as a tight end, but since we already answered that one, with the NFL becoming an almost year-round sport, it seems the times you can choose to go on vacation are very limited. If you weren't covering the birds, what time of year would be your favorite for vacationing?
It would be the fall, and it's the one thing. Like, I love the fall. I love, foliage and going for runs on rail trails in the fall and everything. But we kind of are here, so I miss having the fall a little bit.
For me, like, I'm not a big cold weather guy, so the idea of being able to escape the winter and go somewhere is exciting. And a lot of the, like, my top bucket lists, like, places I want to go are inverted from our seasons. So I've always wanted to go to Australia, New Zealand, and I want to go there in their summer, which is
our winter.
Yeah. So tough to figure that out.
That flight to Australia is kind of daunting.
A little bit. I've been on long flights.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
I've been on long flights that were supposed to be short flights. That might be a good question for, like, what's the worst flight you've ever had?
I've had weird flight experiences.
Is there a worst that comes to mind?
Yeah, it was actually just a flight back from Chicago, and we got stuck on the plane for like 4 hours before we took off. And it was when I was young. I was a teenager by myself, like one of the first times flying by myself, like a young teenager. I was like maybe 13. My sister lives in Illinois, so I went out to visit her and just stuck on that was a tough one. Early memory too.
Yeah, that's not good. We had flew out to San Francisco for an Eagles game, and there was thunderstorms here, and we were stuck on the plane waiting to take off for like an hour and a half. We finally take off. We're about to land in San Francisco. In fact, you could see the Marriott on the left there in Burlingame. You know how the glide scope at SFO kind of, you can see Burlingame and Millbrae on the left. And we're like maybe 1,000 feet up, and it's like we're getting pelted by hail. And we finally just go up, and the pilot's like, "Look, I can't land in this. We're gonna take you over to Oakland, and we're gonna land at Oakland. So if you have anybody meeting you, have them come to Oakland Airport." So we fly around, we land in Oakland, which is inland, so the weather wasn't as bad because SFO, you're kind of not far from the ocean there, Pacific. And we land in Oakland. The problem is American doesn't have gates at Oakland, so we didn't have anywhere to go. So all the people that came to meet people on that flight to Oakland had to go back to San Francisco. And then we had to get fuel, and they don't have a deal with the fuel company there because they don't land planes there because they don't have gates there. So it took 2 hours. We were sitting on the ground for 2 hours after flying 6 hours and sitting on the ground here for an hour and a half. And that was the flight that, Kevin Callahan, who was at the Courier Post forever, that was the flight that convinced him to get off the beat. He's like, I'm done with this. So we sat in Oakland on the tarmac for for 2.5 hours. There's no water, the plane was just jam packed. It was like a DC-10. It was just mobbed. And after finally we got fuel, we never got off because there was nowhere to get off the plane, and flew to San Francisco, like a 6-minute flight across the bay.
Just drive over,
and we couldn't get off. Yeah, we drove the plane over the bridge. By the time we finally landed in SFO, and I stayed that first couple of days there, like up in Napa. So then you have like an hour and a half drive, So I got to my hotel in right in Napa, like around 6 a.m. That was my worst flight experience, because we were on the plane like 5.5 hours for the flight, like an hour and a half in Philly, and then like 2 hours in Oakland, and then whatever time it took to fly to SFO, like 9.5 hours to go across the country. Yeah.
All right. Want to finish one more question here?
Sure. I thought we were done. My bad.
Well, no one else is listening anymore, so we'll just finish up.
The pilot guys listen.
Yeah,
Mr. Glidescope's listening.
With Liam here. Hope the offseason is going well. Thank you all for keeping us in the loop with the team. Last year, I sent in a question asking if you guys thought Milton Williams would take a huge leap in production with the departure of Fletch. This year, I had the same question about Moro Ojomo taking that leap with the departure of Milton Williams. Obviously, these are very different scenarios, considering the draft pick discrepancy and the level of player that is getting replaced, but I thought Moro was extremely underrated last year. Is there any way that he clearly separates himself from the herd and becomes the 1-2 punch next to Jalen Carter?
Yeah, I think that's certainly possible. And I mean, we're both fans. I think we're both fans of Moro, and another late round pick. It's
really a
7th round pick, 249th player taken overall. I don't see a reason he wouldn't continue his progress. Absolutely. I could see him being second interior guy, especially, I mean, I think he can certainly play on all downs.
Yeah, they're excited about him.
Yeah, I would be.
Yeah, he got better. 1-2, and I think there's a chance for a big jump in year 3.
He's another one who had more sacks in the postseason than the regular season.
He had his first sack.
Had his first sack, I think, in the Rams game.
Yeah, it was picked a good time for it.
He did.
All right, that's going to wrap up today's episode. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please do us a favor. Rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. For Roob and Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.